You guys absolutely adored the last headcanon video. Even I'm surprised by how well it's performing. But I left you guys without any headcanon videos for 4 months before that, and that's just not right. So here I am to deliver another Pokemon headcanon video. You're welcome. And don't worry, there won't be any Legends EA spoilers. You're double welcome. In this one, I'll try to focus more on the characters from the Scarlet and Violet DLC, because I finally completed it, and these past 12 headcanon videos have had a severe lack of them. So I want to make up for that with today's video. And I did go back to previous videos to search for them, so don't you worry, guys. And if you're happy about another headcanon video, hit the hype button. I think it really worked last time, so let's do it again. Like always, if you want your headcanon featured in a future video, leave a comment down below and make sure you subscribe. Trust me, I'll know. Anyways, here's the top comment from last video. Dragonite Supremacy says, headcanon, Zubatman exists. If Zubatman existed in the Pokemon world, what would the Joker equivalent be? The Mime? Also, I feel like the Gotham City of Pokemon has gotta be Lumiose City. I mean, Black City could work too, mostly aesthetically, but my vote still goes to Lumiose. Oh, actually, Spikemuth could work really well too. I feel like any of those options is valid. Sunny to Sheep says, I feel like Nemona's the kind of person who will eat a lot of spicy food, but has a really low spice tolerance. I can definitely see Nemona doing this. Maybe she sees it as a competition, or just likes to push herself to the absolute limit. Though in Mexican culture, you are seen as kind of a wimp if you don't have a high spice tolerance, so maybe she just doesn't want to get made fun of. Also, yes, I headcanon Nemona as Mexican, it just fits. Blue Stew says, here's some of my headcanons. 1. Will likes to pull pranks on people and sometimes gets carried away. He probably throws a fake bomb at Kieran, and when it explodes, it's just glitter. 2. Professor Sycamore is like a father to Alon. In my opinion, they have a father-son dynamic, and I find it funny. Also, Alon has a biting problem. 3. Faulkner has a fear of heights despite him being a flying type trainer. He's only not scared if he's on Pidgeot, because he has it as comfort. 4. The only reason Blue treats Red coldly is because he was in his shadow. He was jealous that Professor Oak treated Red as if he was his grandson. 5. Blue dyes his hair whenever he's bored, which is why he goes from brunette to ginger. 6. Will and Lucian are siblings, and they didn't know until they were adults. I honestly completely forgot who Will was, so I had to search him up, and yeah, this guy looks like he would love to pull pranks. He'd probably lecture him afterwards, but he'd claim it was worth it. Alon and Professor Sycamore having a father-son type dynamic is pretty sweet. It's been years since I've seen the X and Y anime though. I was like 10 years old, so I don't remember a whole bunch, but I do remember Alon being Sycamore's assistant. So he probably did look up to him and saw him as a father figure. Also, I don't know if by biting problem you mean Alon bites himself or other people. I'd imagine himself, right? Being a flying type specialist but being scared of heights sounds like an absolute nightmare. I don't know what would have compelled Faulkner to become one in this headcanon, but it's nice to know that his Pidgeot is able to make him feel safe while he's up in the air. Blue having an inferiority complex and fighting for his grandfather's attention is a neat little headcanon. I feel like after you beat him time and time again, this feeling would only continue to grow even more. Honestly, until you pointed it out, I didn't really notice just how often Blue's hair changes. He used to be depicted with brown hair, but then it suddenly became orange. And in my head, I always just interpreted it as light brown, but nah, that's almost Charmander orange. Similar thing happened to Red too. He used to have black hair, and now his hair is brown. I guess they both dye their hair in this headcanon. Again, I had to search up who Lucian was, and apparently it's another Elite Four member. I feel like I forget them so easily. But anyways, I can for sure see them being related. They both look super smug, have purplish hair, and both specialize in psychic types. I don't know if they get along, but still. Egglake says, a headcanon I have that's pretty recent is that Lacey's mother is Elisa, since she has a +1 Minun along with Excadrill. And it would make sense since Clay was willing to lower an entire bridge allowing Team Plasma to escape just because Elisa told him to. I feel like it's super likely that Lacey's mom is Elisa. Their bangs alone look pretty similar. They're both from Nimbasa City, and Lacey does use 2 electric type Pokemon, so I feel like it makes sense. The only problem would be the hair color. I'm assuming Elisa's natural hair color is blonde and Clay has brown hair, so where did the pink come from? Yeah, Lacey could have dyed it, but usually it's assumed Pokemon characters have their natural hair color, unless they've been explicitly shown to change it. And yeah, lowering an entire bridge just because Elisa told him to without hesitation might be because he likes her. The Team Plasma part was not intentional though. That was not part of the plan. Jonathan says, I'm stealing this from a fanfic I read, but it's too good to not mention. Ball Guy's true identity is Looker. He is suspicious of Rose, but can't find solid evidence of his crimes. Looker knows from experience that when a kid who is an amazing prodigy goes on a journey, they usually end up fighting an evil boss, so he just follows you around wherever you go. I think this is a really cool headcanon about Ball Guy, albeit a little silly. Ball Guy felt kind of random to have in Sword and Shield. Like, what even is a Ball Guy? But it turning out to just be Looker going around from place to place following the pro tag just because he thinks Chairman Rose is up to something, but just can't prove it, is a nice little spin on it. He's the embodiment of this meme right here. He's not wrong though. Something always manages to go down. A very ordinary squid says, my headcanon is Hop has hyperfixations for a week, like dinosaur and fossil Pokemon, then the next week he's collecting shoes. This is a very fitting headcanon for Hop. And like you said, they'd 100% just be completely unrelated to one another. I can see it as him trying new things to see if he's good at them, and maybe he can become a prodigy like his brother Leon at it, before moving on to to the next thing because he lost interest. Sir Doge says, Lacey from the Indigo disc is the type of person who would write in cursive, but not be able to read it. This headcanon's funny. I can imagine it's not even that she has bad handwriting. I imagine Lacey's handwriting to be really good. It's just the fact that it's cursive, and she's just unable to read it and would just stare at it completely clueless. I can't even blame her though. I have trouble reading cursive too. Buoyant Cat says, I've been building up my headcanons for this moment. 1. Chairman Rose learned Penny was a whiz with computers and used her to hack into databases to scout potential new champions. That's how he found Bede. 2. Ogerpon doesn't like Kieran because she had to save him when he tried to trek up the mountain when he was a kid. 3. Pecharunt has people do the weird dance because it's about the only dance it can do with its tiny arms. 4. Mina has a terrible sense of direction, but she uses it to her advantage to find new scenery for her paintings. 5. Every night, every trainer in a route group up to make a campsite where people socialize, trade, and exchange info. 6. Ogerpon randomly picks up Pecha berries to check if Pecharunt is hiding in it. 7. The reason Red is silent is because Blue spent their entire childhood beating Red's self-esteem into a fine pace. 8. Scottish Gloria. 9. Guzma has a secret team of super cute and adorable Pokemon, which are actually demons, and everyone fears them. Rose manipulating Penny into helping him out with his schemes is something scummy that I can definitely see him doing. The real question is, would Penny be smart enough to realize that he's up to something, or would she just see it as her uncle being technologically illiterate? I guess on its own, it's not inherently bad. It's what he does after finding Bede that's bad. I don't really see the Ogerpon one. She doesn't seem like the type of Pokemon to get annoyed after helping someone. She's too friendly. Maybe she was just scared that Kieran was one of the villagers who wanted to persecute her when he trekked his way up the mountain. I feel like it's so strange that Pecharunt makes you do this weird chicken dance. Like, it still doesn't really make any sense to me. It feels so random. So I like this headcanon. Since it doesn't really have that many limbs, the only thing it can really do is just flap them like a chicken, making the person under its control do a chicken dance. Making Mina make the best out of her bad sense of direction is a nice way to deal with it. She'd have to get it done in that one sitting though, because if she ever plans to return there, I don't think she'd be able to find it in this headcanon. I actually really love the headcanon about the big campsite on routes every night. It would be really fun to have all these different trainers all on their own journeys meet together to chill out for a night, then all go their separate ways in the morning. I'd imagine they'd make tons of friends that way and just overall have a good time. I think I also just like this one a lot because my friends and I do bonfires a lot, and hanging around the fire is just pleasant. I wouldn't even blame Ogerpon for being paranoid of Pecha berries. She has every right to feel that way, especially because it actually was hiding in plain sight too. I can see Blue bullying Red when they were younger, but I don't think his self-esteem would be entirely crushed. Red's a confident guy. I feel like maybe he would have just realized that even if he did argue back with Blue, it would just make things worse and end in a never-ending cycle. So he just says nothing so Blue gets bored and stops. Everyone loves Scottish Gloria. I think this is one pretty much everyone universally accepts. Guzma having a whole team of super cute Pokemon, but them being borderline rabid is awesome. I just imagine them being absolutely feral. And because nobody ever expects anything out of them because they're so cute, they severely underestimate them, which only leads to them being even more caught off guard. Pat says, my headcanons are that Rosa likes to pet her Pokemon whenever she's nervous, and she regularly gets electrocuted or burned by accident when touching her Pokemon. Also, I have the headcanon that Kieran looked up competitive battles to build his Indigo disc team. I can totally see Rosa doing this as a nervous habit and getting so caught up in her own head that she doesn't even realize she's getting hurt. Maybe some of her Pokemon would get annoyed that she does this so often, but she just can't help it. Kieran for sure did his research in order to become as strong as he possibly could, but my question is, how exactly did he find this information since he doesn't have a phone? Maybe he just got a bunch of books and read them, or maybe he just watched a bunch of battles broadcasted on TV of top trainers fighting each other. Chris World says, I have a headcanon that Kieran gave Amaris an applin since it's one of his favorite Pokemon, but Amaris interpreted it as Kieran admitting feelings for her, but neither try to confirm it. This is a very cute headcanon, but I guess also tragic in a way. Amaris has a very obvious crush on Kieran, and giving an applin to someone in Galar is seen as someone confessing their love and means that you want to be with them forever. So in her head, Kieran is essentially doing just that. However, Kieran is just completely oblivious to this, so it still remains completely one-sided. Green Copper says, only 2 today. 1. Akari and Ray go back home after you're done playing. 2. This is for both DLC rivals and Scarlet and Violet rivals' favorite pizzas. Namono likes meat lovers. Carmine, Penny, and Normal Kieran Normal would like cheese. Drayton and Lacey like pepperoni. Crispin likes spicy lover. And Amaris doesn't like it, but if she did, she would like cheese. I think Akari or Ray getting to go home every once in a while is nice, but I'd prefer if they were allowed to go home permanently. I'd feel kind of bad if the moment I want to play, they're forced to go back to the past. I think your pizza choices for every character is very fitting. Namono would 100% get a meat lover's pizza because it's like Goku or Luffy eating meats. They love it. Carmine does seem like the type of person to eat cheese pizza, but I feel like Penny would try to optimize her pizza to try and get as many toppings as she possibly can on it to get the absolute most out of her money. Also, you mentioned normal Kieran, but not angry Kieran, so I imagine he swaps to Hawaiian pizza because he thinks it's the most evil topping, and he also thinks he'll make people angry by eating and enjoying it, when in reality, nobody really cares, aside from maybe Carmine. Maybe Kieran has always liked pineapple on pizza, but was always worried people would make fun of him for it. Drayton 100% would love pepperoni pizza. He just seems like that type of guy, but I feel like Lacey would try to throw some vegetables onto hers because she thinks it would make it a bit healthier. healthier. Crispin is the most obvious. If it's spicy, he's throwing it on. Maybe he'd even put hot sauce on it. Who knows? And he'd 100% overload it with chili flakes. I sometimes do that, so I see the vision. And yeah, I feel like Amaris wouldn't really like pizza. Overall, great headcanon. I like KFC says. My headcanon is that Peony loves KFC, but Peonia absolutely hates it. I really love this headcanon not only because it's funny, but it also just reminds me a lot of my dad and how much he loves Burger King, but I absolutely despise it. I feel like the burgers taste like soap. The Ghost Pepper Whopper though, I gotta hand it to him. That's a good item. I can imagine Peonia, much like me, would still eat it though, just begrudgingly. Sneak the Octo says, my headcanon is that Clay is always overworking himself and expanding the Clay tunnel, yet the moment he finds out his daughter Lacey has a big Pokemon battle upcoming, he drops everything to come and cheer her on like a madman. Lacey gets incredibly embarrassed about this, so she stopped telling him about most of her bigger battles, which is why Clay doesn't show up for the battle between her and the player in the Indigo disc. I can for sure see Clay being willing to show up to every single one of Lacey's battles. He just seems like a very supportive father. He'd most definitely be screaming at the top of his lungs cheering his daughter on in the crowd, and would only get louder if she brings out her Excadrill. To be fair though, I think anyone would be embarrassed if they were put in Lacey's position, so I wouldn't even blame her for not telling her dad about her battles anymore. That's probably how pretty much everyone knows who her dad is. She can't exactly hide it now. GGP says, I have some headcanons about the Indigo disc. I like to think that Crispin is Chili's son, and that's where he got his love of spicy food. I think this is kinda implied in the game, but it's not confirmed, so technically it's a headcanon. Why his hometown is Burbank, I couldn't tell you. But to be fair, Lacey's Clay's daughter, and she's from Nimbasa. I've also been playing around with the idea of Amaris being related to Lenora. I mean, Amaris is a by-the-books character, and Lenora's gym puzzle was a book puzzle, so it kinda makes sense. Though since she is from Castelia City, I also kinda like the idea of her either being related to or raised by Berg. Lenora and Berg are friends, so it's not too out there, I guess. I also feel like Crispin's dad is Chili. I feel like it makes way too much sense, especially seeing as how the other two Blueberry League members have connections to other Unova characters. But yeah, the Burbank City thing is kinda random. I guess that's just where Chili decided to settle down with Crispin's mystery mother. I can also see Amaris. Actually, I think her name's pronounced Amaris. Oops. Anyways, Lenora seems stern, and Amaris is well-behaved and very smart, so I can see it. I think Berg being the family friend that took care of her every now and then is sweet. Also, Amaris does have a Caesar, and Berg uses bug types, so maybe that's where she got the inspiration from. Goji Raptor says, I have a headcanon that Penny invited, or forced, Kieran to watch her favorite anime, and Kieran got addicted to it, so now they plan to watch along every so often. I can definitely see Penny forcing her friends to come over and watch anime, but I wonder which one she would have had in mind for Kieran. I feel like he would like anything shonen, mostly because it usually involves a weaker main character who gets stronger with sheer dedication, and he would probably relate to that a lot. Or maybe he'd even just like slice of life because it makes him feel happy. Who knows? Kaito Pedestrian says, gonna just talk about protagonists. They need those headcanons. All protags will be adults in these. Dawn is a very dirty potty mouth, but if anyone under the age of 12 enters the room, she immediately gets embarrassed. Celine spaces out a lot and is usually thinking about cake pops maybe. Elio absolutely hates Malasadas because he's had a lot with How and absolutely got over it. Rosa pampers her Pokemon to hell and back. Callum makes little outfits for his Pokemon and likes entering Pokemon contests, but keeps that a secret. Juliana loves making really bad sandwiches by mixing ingredients, and Florian is horrified by it. After the entire fiasco with Kieran, Juliana made a little ogre pond plush for him, and she likes sewing in general. The one about Dawn swearing is pretty funny. I'd imagine she'd make poor attempts to censor herself with like substitute words, but slip up every now and then. The one about Celine spacing out, the one about Celine, okay, I'm wondering why this is so hard for me to read. I accidentally made a bar. Celine spacing out thinking about cake pops. The one about Celine spacing out thinking about cake pops is so random, but for some strange reason, I can just see it. Can't even blame her. Cake pops are pretty good. I totally understand Elio being done with malasadas. I can't imagine the amount of times he would have had to have them with How. I feel like even if you do like a food, having it over and over and over again will just make you completely sick of it. I feel like that happens a lot with me. Sometimes my dad notices I like a certain food, so then he ends up giving it to me for like 2 months straight, and I appreciate it. I really do, but I'm just completely sick of it by the end. I can see Rosa pampering her Pokemon. Maybe she just lets them lounge around instead of training all the time. And as a result, they're kind of sheltered. I've always liked the idea of Callum and Serena becoming fashion designers, so him making outfits for his Pokemon entered contest is a neat little idea. Maybe he'll inevitably cross paths with someone he knows, and he has to put on a disguise like Jessie does in the anime. I really like the one about Juliana making these horrendous sandwiches just to traumatize Florian with it. I feel like she'd also show Arvin just to see his reaction too. I'm 50-50 about Kieran receiving an Ogre Pond plush. It's a cute little gesture, but I feel like it would maybe make Kieran feel bad as like a constant reminder of what he did, so maybe I'd opt into changing it to a Hydrapple plush instead. C-Tune says, my headcanon is that Carmine was the favorite child, so her grandparents coddled her and let her get away with anything she wants, making her into the dumpster fire she is today. I think Carmine was most definitely spoiled when she was little, otherwise she wouldn't be so full of herself all the time. Maybe her grandparents did eventually learn their mistake because they do scold her now, but I guess by now it's a bit too late for that. Nate Rizzo says, my headcanon is that in the Scarlet and Violet DLC, Kieran goes crazy because he touched the statues of the Loyal Three, infecting him with a toxic chain effect, making him go insane like we see at the end of part 1. Also, I have a headcanon that Mew and Celebi are the same Pokemon. Mew just likes to mess with people in Johto, or is trying to hide from more scientists that are trying to clone it again. I think the concept of Kieran being infected with the toxic chain is interesting, but at the same time, it would completely negate his whole character arc if it was just, oh, sorry guys, I was kind of possessed, that wasn't really me. Maybe at the very least, it just amplified the emotions he was already feeling. He was a very mischievous little creature, so I can see it wanting to mess with people. Though I can't really blame it for wanting to hide. People going out of their way to find you and clone you sounds scary. Aura Mage says, I have some headcanons related to Generation 9. Sorry if they're not good. 1. In her free time, Nemona always writes her strategies when it comes to battles with a whiteboard. She never runs out of markers. 2. Arvin Skwovet trained really hard to be as strong as the player, which is why it's agreed on during the Dodonzo and Tatsugiri battle. 3. Penny traveled to Galar Route 4 to catch her VVs and evolved every one of them into different evolutions. 4. The reason why Kieran sat his Furret out in the Teal mask is because he sees Furret as a pet and didn't want to put it on his revenge plan. He also caught a second Poliwag during his training. 5. Every time the Festival of Mask happened, Carmine would set a new record at Ogre Ousting. I think since there's not a lot of people to battle, writing strategies is pretty much the only thing Nemona can do to keep herself busy. I imagine the whiteboard looks like complete nonsense, but she can understand pretty much everything she wrote down. Maybe she color codes them too. Arvin Skwovet being motivated and trying extra hard to become stronger is pretty cute. Penny finding all of her EVs in Galar makes sense since that is where she's from, but my only question is if she caught them all at once, or if she slowly got them over time. And if that's the case, which evolution did she get first? I can see Kieran sitting it out to keep his Furret safe, but I can also see it as Kieran intentionally pushing away the people and Pokemon closest to him. Even though his Furret cares about him, he's willing to cast it aside because it's objectively not good in battles. Poor little guy. He even still has another slot for a Pokemon after he gets rid of it, only using 5, yet he still chose to bench his Furret. Also, I can see him doing what Paul did in the anime, releasing his original Poliwag because it had a bad nature and catching a different one with a better nature. I can see Carmine being really good at Ogre Ousting. Maybe anytime someone would beat her record, she would participate right after them just so she could keep the high score to herself. Verdant Range says, here's a few. 1. It takes a lot longer for Pokemon to heal at the center than what we see in the game, and the cuts of black is so the trainer can go to the bathroom, shower, etc. 2. Pokestar Studios is the Pokemon World's version of Canon Films, doing multiple productions simultaneously while being dirt cheap. 3. Cynthia's only allowed in certain parts of Unova because she's considered a threat to the Vanillite line's survival. 4. Smeargle are banned in Galar for painting over the ancient mural on Stownside. 5. A version of Ash exists in the game's timeline, leaving Palette after Red, Blue, and Green, ending up with a spare Pikachu, and is much less well known in the games than its anime counterpart. 6. If a Smeargle uses Fly, it does so by spinning its tail like a helicopter. I always thought it was strange in the Pokemon anime. Going to the Pokemon Center was always so stressful. Like you have Ash and his friends sitting in the lobby stressing out overnight, then in the morning their Pokemon are just fine. But in the games, you just hand nurse joy your Pokemon and they're fine within the same minute. I like the way the anime handled it. It felt a lot more realistic, so I like this headcanon. I don't really watch that many movies, so I don't know what Canon Films is known for, but I can see Pokestar Studios being super cheaply made. Though maybe in the Pokemon world, the movies are seen as so bad that they're good, and still has its own little fan base. While Cynthia does love ice cream, I feel like Vanillites and its evolutions are a way bigger threat to her than she is to them. Garchomp is a dragon ground type. One ice beam and it's over. I can see Smeargle getting banned from Galar because of that. I guess they just can't resist the temptation to paint over it, and they got sick and tired of cleaning it up every single time. Though, maybe they're unbanned now since it's kind of destroyed now, so I can't help but feel sad about Ash existing in the games, because that means this version of Ash wouldn't have traveled with like pretty much all of his friends. Maybe in this universe he would still at least have Go and Chloe since they're kind of made for the anime and don't really have a game counterpart. I guess Tracy could also qualify, but I like the idea of Ash, Go, and Chloe. I feel like that's a good little trio. I love the idea of Smeargle using its tail to fly, kind of like Tails the Fox does. I mean, hey, whatever works. Plus, it would be pretty funny. Permafrost says, people in Pokemon propose with love balls. This is a very cute headcanon, and it's already halfway true. When Professor Kukui proposed to Professor Burnett, he used a little Pokeball, but it's such a missed opportunity for him to not use a love ball. Come on, it's too perfect. Though I suppose the love ball would have made it way more obvious what he was about to do. So maybe Kukui did make the right choice in making it look like an ordinary Pokeball. Mudfish Nick says, I have 3 headcanons. 1. Nemona has been repeatedly offered to take part in the Blueberry Academy student exchange program, but she always turns it down once she learns she still wouldn't be allowed to challenge the BB League. 2. Lacey uses an Excadrill with the Fairy Terra type because her dad insisted she uses a ground type Pokemon, family tradition and such. 3. Jack unironically has a lifetime subscription to the Occulture magazine, but only so he can use it for teaching lessons on the problems caused by pseudoscience and misinformation. I feel like Nemona learning she can't challenge the Blueberry League would absolutely crush her, but to be fair, they made an exception for the player, so why can't they make one for Nemona? She's also a champion. Even if she can't, I still feel like she'd want to go because she's the adventurous type. She wouldn't pass up this opportunity. She jumped at the chance to go to Kitsukami after all. Lacey 100% only uses an Excadrill because her dad makes her. She loves cute Pokemon, and while I love Excadrill, it's way too cool and tough looking to be considered cute, so it just sticks out from the rest of her team. She does try to make it it work though by giving them the fairy tale typing, so maybe she thinks it makes it cuter. Also, after looking at Excadrill's shiny, it was such a missed opportunity to not make hers shiny. It would match her design so well, and it makes Excadrill look so much cuter, so it would have fit in with the theme of her Pokemon being cute. I can imagine the lessons Jack is giving aren't even lessons anymore. He's just making fun of pseudoscience. Though, I don't know exactly how that would even work, because in the Pokemon world, ghosts and psychics are a very real thing. So I feel like pseudoscience and stuff like that wouldn't even be that far-fetched in the Pokemon world. Saint Sucks says, I also need to talk about my headcanons for the Unova cast because I love them. Whenever Iris has to leave the Pokemon League for an extended period of time, Alder fills in for her. He also regularly visits the league just to chat with everyone and is 100% up to date with the gossip. Skyla has become hard of hearing over time because of all the plane arrivals / departures. Her normal speaking volume is her pretty much yelling. Benga has attempted to learn how to rock climb and has failed miserably on multiple occasions. He also climbed up the side of the White Tree Hollow and had to be saved by Skyla. Hilbert / Hilda are awkwardly social. They have absolutely no filter and will ramble for hours until they literally lose their voice. Clay is one of Roxy's biggest fans and often plays her music when down in the tunnels. Marlon and Iris like to pull pranks on Drayton. While Iris likes to mess with Drayton by hiding his keys, Marlon somehow flooded his entire bathroom once. Now Marlon cannot enter Opelucid City without supervision. Marshall and Sharon are really good friends. Whenever Marshall has free time, he likes to drop by the school and hang out with the kids. Sharon and Marshall also like to talk about new battle strategies for any upcoming battles. Elisa and Chantal are actually childhood besties. They lived in the same area and often hung out talking about what they wanted to do when they grew up and pushed each other to reach their goals. Elisa went out of her way to find the best designer in Unova to give Chantal her current outfit as a gift to celebrate her becoming one of the Elite Four. I don't know in what situations Iris would have to leave, but I think Alder filling in for her when she's out is a fun little idea. Maybe whenever Alder shows up, that's when she uses the opportunity to leave. She's like, oh my god, I'm so happy you're here. Okay, bye. Also, the idea of him just knowing all the gossip is super funny to me. I love it. I feel like maybe he would even instigate it too. Like, oh, I heard so-and-so say that they think rock-type Pokemon are weak, but you didn't hear it from me. I like the headcanon of Skyla's normal talking voice being borderline shouting. Like, hey, how are you? And she's like a foot in front of you. There's no reason to be talking like that. And it makes sense, because like you said, being around planes all the time would probably mess up your hearing. I can also see it leading to situations where she has to ask huh over and over again, trying to understand someone before just giving up and saying, haha, yeah. Hopefully it wasn't a question. I can see Benga being horrible at rock climbing. He seems really impulsive and probably wouldn't take more than a few seconds to decide which rock would be safe to climb next. I imagine it takes a fair bit of concentration. At first I thought you meant awkwardly social, like they were shy, but I think a better way to put it is that they're overly social. Like them wanting to talk to literally everyone they come across and practically talking their ear off. The idea of Clay playing Roxy's music at full blast in the tunnels is so funny to me because I just imagine it echoing throughout the entire tunnel system. All you gotta do is follow the source of the music and you'll find him. I can also imagine him listening to country music while he's down there. I can see Iris pulling pranks on Drayton. I don't know how Marlon would get involved, but I don't think he'd be opposed to helping out. Marshall and Sharon being friends is something I wouldn't expect, but I can definitely see it since they're both very serious in nature. I can imagine anytime Marshall visits, he shows off to the kids just how strong his Pokemon are and encourages them to train and study hard. I like the idea of Elisa and Chantal being friends. It's like the one trope where one friend is very extroverted while the other's introverted. It's always a nice little dynamic, and I think it's sweet that they would encourage each other. I think Elisa giving her the outfit she currently wears would be awesome. I love her outfit a lot, but maybe that's just my ghost type bias talking. Georges says, I've commented before about my headcanon of Elisa collecting vintage automobiles, and I like to offer a few others. Clay is just like Peony when it comes to fatherhood. The difference is that Lacey is very much a daddy's girl compared to Peonia. Lacey has Drayton's number on speed dial and calls him if Drayton is slacking too much. Saguaro can, has, and will someday again fight an Ursaring barehanded and win. I can see Lacey being either way. Either she absolutely loves her dad to bits, or she's just embarrassed by him like Peonia is. I'm leaning more towards her loving her dad though, because I think it fits her personality more because she's pretty kind and well-mannered, but I also just think it would be wholesome. I'm trying to think of an example of the type of relationship they'd have, but I can't really think of any. Most anime characters have dead or missing parents, so I can't really think of any off the top of my head. Lacey having Drayton's number on speed dial is so funny, mostly because it reminds me of whenever a teacher would threaten to call a kid's mom and say that she had it on speed dial. I don't think she'd ever call him though. She would probably just use it as a threat. Plus, I don't think Drayton would even care too much. Even if she did call him, he'd probably just go back to slacking off. I have never in my entire life heard of or seen Saguaro. Apparently he's the home economics teacher in Scarlet and Violet, which explains why I never saw him because I just skipped class. I have no idea why he would want to fight an Ursaring with his bare hands. Haha, bare. But honestly, he looks pretty tough, so maybe one day he'll be able to defeat it. Goose says, Kieran refuses to use any way of telling the time other than the sun. Sometimes he spends entire nights thinking of battle strategies and testing them. Looks at the sun rising and thinks, I'll just sleep tonight instead. Occasionally, this happens consecutively, and he doesn't sleep for over a week. He has become so used to this happening that it feels strange to him when he's not sleep deprived. This would also happen to Nimona if she didn't set alarms to stop battling. Crafting Gummy replies with, Crispin, hey, what time is it? Kieran, we're inside the classroom, so I can't really tell. Lacey, what? And I cannot stress this enough, the heck? I love this headcanon so much, and the reply only made it so much better. I think it fits Kieran, since he doesn't have a phone. I suppose that would be the only way he'd be able to tell the time if he didn't have a watch. So I guess he just got used to it. I think the pure hatred and envy Kieran felt was the source of energy that kept him from falling asleep. Also, again, the reply is perfect. Kieran being so dead serious about it, and Lacey being appalled at his response is great. Key Dickens says, "Here are a few of my headcanons I came up with the other night while mildly sleep deprived. Kieran doesn't have a cell phone because he would rather stay away from technology since he's afraid he would rely on it too much. Carmine has a vintage record player in her room because she's oddly fascinated by old technology, and because her grandparents let her keep their old one. Since they live with their grandparents and have their influence, Carmine and Kieran really like classic rock and 50s, 60s, and early 70s music. Penny really likes hyperpop, 110 Gex, Charlie XCX, etc. Not only is he good at cooking, but Arvin likes to knit, crochet, and sew as well. Nemona's favorite drink is horchata, and her favorite flavor of anything is cinnamon, but she also loves sour foods. Aerie loves relaxing and resting when she's done training. She winds down by running a hot bath and having a cup of hot chocolate, but the thick French kind, not the North American kind. Atticus's native language is not the language spoken in Paldea, which is partially why his speech is so formal. Grusha is really shy, which is why he's awkward around his fans / the player, but why he converses confidently with other gym leaders. Iona was inspired to become a live streamer since she was in student council in middle school and high school, and would host assemblies. Sophocles and Molane are distantly related to Melanie and Gordy. Illima's mom is from Kalos, but his dad is from Alola. He lived in Kalos during his early childhood, but moved later to Alola. I believe it's either implied or outright said in the games that Illima is from Kalos. Hop runs a Leon fan account that posts photos and updates on social media, and has loads of followers from all around the world, and is a giant history nerd, especially for the medieval Pokemon equivalent of Europe. Admittedly, this one was inspired by my older brother. Blue is the only one in his family with that hair color. Barry has ADHD, which is why he's impatient and twitchy. I've thought this ever since I was a kid. Also, he just like me for real. Dawn isn't self-conscious about her stature since she wins protagonist and rival hide and seek every time. Marnie and Piers have naturally curly hair, but they get straight perms because they find it easier to maintain. Ryan is a surprisingly good chef. His grandparents moved to Galar from another region. I headcanon him as a Middle Eastern or Southeast Asian, as young adults. Lance and Claire are 8 days apart, with Lance being slightly older, inspired by me and my own cousin, who were born 8 days apart from each other. Larry was a runner as a young adult, but because of his heavy workload, he had to give up his hobby. Wally wears cardigans and warmer clothes because most of his clothes are hand-me-downs from older family members, particularly his great uncles and his grandma. Leon is not a picky eater at all. He loves all kinds of foods, and will try anything at least once. However, he does not like coffee. Clara is a big fan of drag since their makeup is always extravagant, and partially wants to become a famous gym leader so she can create her own makeup / beauty brand. Avery's hat is a family heirloom. I think this is a good little headcanon for why Kieran doesn't have a phone. He never really shows any desire to have one in the game, so it probably is just his own decision. Plus, Carmine has one, and her grandparents don't really care about it, so I suppose it's not their choice either. I like the idea of Carmine and Kieran having older technology, and Carmine being fascinated by it. I don't know why, but it just feels really fitting for them. Maybe they still use Polaroid cameras. I don't think I've ever heard of the genre hyperpop before, but it sounds like something Penny would like. Her battle theme's very hyper, so I feel like it correlates really well. I feel like Arvid would know how to do a lot of things, so I can for sure see him being able to knit and sew and stuff. I basically just imagine him like Brock from the anime with his skill set since he had to take care of himself pretty much for half his life. Yes, yes, just yes. Nemona loving horchata just makes so much sense. I live for the Nemona Mexican agenda. Horchata's so very tasty, but one time I drank like 6 cups of it and I got sick, which means my limit is 5 for now. But yes, since horchata has cinnamon, I feel like she'd like anything cinnamon flavored. Sour foods also make sense too, since a lot of Mexican candy is pretty sour. But my addition to this is that she loves tamarind. Tamarind candy is also very tasty. I don't know if you mean Aerie takes a bath and drinks hot chocolate at the same time, or it's one or the other. I've never heard of anyone drinking hot chocolate while taking a bath, but I can imagine it'd be relaxing. I've never seen French hot chocolate before, only Mexican hot chocolate, but the French one looks so tasty. It looks like it came straight from a chocolate fountain. I feel like people who learn a language later in life and become proficient at it usually have a way better vocabulary than those who grew up speaking it. So I like this headcanon to explain why Atticus speaks so formally. I think you forgot to explain why Grusha's fine with talking to other gym leaders, but I think like many shy people in real life, talking to friends is just way easier. The idea of Iono being part of the school council is so outlandish to me because I feel like she would get in trouble a lot because of her behavior. But I can see her hosting like talent shows or school events, you know, stuff like that. Things that are more casual but require more energy. I think it would be really cool if Sophocles and Molane were related to Melanie and Gordy. I always really liked when Pokemon characters are connected to other characters. It makes the world feel more alive. I think Hop running a Leon fan account is something he would do, especially because he looks up to his older brother so much. I wouldn't even be surprised if he runs the official Leon account. I can see N being interested in history. He seems like that type of person. I assume he probably wasn't really allowed to learn much growing up, so learning history is like forbidden knowledge for him. I feel like Barry is very ADHD coded. That guy's all over the place, and I thought the same thing when I first saw him too. I can see Marnie and Pierre straightening their hair. It's a very emo thing to do. I used to straighten my hair too, but I kind of sucked at it. I didn't know you could do it with chemicals though. This changes everything. There's still some curl left in Marnie's hair towards the bottom, so maybe it's not completely straight. Also, her master's outfit has curlier hair, so I guess that's what it would look like. I can see Ryan making food that looks super delicious just to take a picture of it and post it online. Maybe he just gives the food to someone random afterwards. He just wanted it for the photo. Lance being 8 days older than Claire is fun. I don't think he'd bring it up often though. I think it'd be more interesting in reverse. Like Claire being as immature as she is would hold it over him like it's something worth caring about, while Lance is like whatever about it. I can see Larry being a runner when he was younger, back when he still had dreams and aspirations. I also like Wally wearing hand-me-downs. It's kind of working in his favor though. I think it fits his vibes perfectly. Seeing as how Leon gets lost a lot, he'd probably end up in all sorts of random places. So I can imagine him eating all kinds of foods and loving them. I don't know why he hates coffee specifically, but I like the idea. I can see Clara making her own beauty brand, but hopefully it doesn't flop like her music career. And Avery's hat being an heirloom is cool. I like it. It's such a strange hat, but very distinct. Cheeseworm says, a few headcanons of mine. I feel like Sonia and Nessa would just like adopt Lana, and that Lana didn't realize Magikarp is a fish and accidentally suffocated one. Crispin puts spicy powder stuff in his lemonade and chugs it. Arvin bit people as a kid. Lacey played DDLC blind and got traumatized after. And Penny tried to give her therapy. Gladian and Kieran share Angst Voice Spotify playlist and have only met online. Peony and Steven are best friends and always talk about rocks together. Peony managed to get taken over by Nihilego trying to sleep on it. Steven wears Onyx cufflinks. Arvin listens to Linkin Park. I think any water type trainer would just adopt Lana and try to get her to be as strong as she possibly can. Crispin putting spicy powder in his lemonade and drinking it sounds terrible, but it definitely sounds like something he would do. Just imagining it makes me feel uneasy. That would hurt. It's acidic and spicy. I don't know why we have so many biting headcanons today, but okay, sure. Throw Arvin in there too. Lacey playing DDLC is such a funny concept. That poor girl has no idea what was gonna happen. She probably thought it was just gonna be a cute little story. I can imagine Kieran and Gladian having very similar music tastes. Although Kieran doesn't have the same type of angst as Gladian, I feel like that's the type of vibes he's going for in the Indigo disc. The thought of Peony and Steven meeting has never crossed my mind, but this is an interaction I need to see. Peony can take Steven on an adventure, but instead of looking at all the rare Pokemon down there, Steven would just adore all the different rocks. I can't even blame Peony for trying to sleep on Nihilego. It looks like a giant squishy jellyfish, although it probably isn't very squishy since I'm pretty sure Nihilego is made of glass, but you know, he at least tried. If there's an opportunity for Steven to wear something rock related, I'm sure that he would take it. I need Rocket too. And yes, Arvin listening to Linkin Park sounds about right. Ginger Ale says, a few of my headcanons for my favorite Pokemon characters. This list is constantly growing. Atticus has broken character a handful of times, one of which was when he saw something so odd / disturbing / strange that he blurted out, what the hell? In front of one of the Navi squad grunts. Nobody believes the grunt when they tell that story. Kieran sounds similar to Dan the Meme Man, at least in Indigo disc. Yakumo and Guzma can both rap the entirety of Rap God perfectly. Penny is actively trying to track down the original poster of the Vaporeon post. The wrath of Team Star and her VVs will be unleashed upon this individual, and apologizes when he bumps into an inanimate object. Speaking of N, you know how in the Generations episode where he talks to Getsus in the giant chasm, and how he just casually jumps off of Reshiram's back like Spider-Man? I am convinced that N actually taught himself to do that, and hurt himself multiple times doing so. He still does sometimes. Assuming the Black and White 2 protag never caught one of the Eon twins, Drayton's love of dragon types was not only inspired by his grandfather, but by a Latios/Latios he encountered in the Dreamyard when he was a kid. Crispin watches those spicy mukbang videos to get ideas for new recipes by just mashing a bunch of them together. Lacey may not like violence at all, but she's perfectly capable of whooping someone's ass if she absolutely has to. As in, they straight up attack her physically. Amaris does long division for fun. Drayton once tricked Amaris into typing boobs on a calendar. Drayton once tricked Amaris into typing boobs on a calculator, so she burned it because he tainted it with his stupidity. Carmine and Amaris are friends from childhood because Carmine stuck up for Amaris against bullies when they were little. Amaris didn't care about the bullies, but appreciated Carmine's effort to step in. Larry can rap better than rhyme. He just doesn't. Yakumo tries to convince Larry to do vocals in his tracks. Atticus breaking character is funny. I like it. I wonder what he would have saw to make him break character though. Maybe it wasn't even something that outrageous. Maybe he just saw like a crazy sale on a ninja sword or something. Yakumo and Guzma rapping kinda goes hard, I can't even lie. They need to drop an album together. I hope Penny will one day track them down, because they did irreparable damage to Vaporeon's legacy, and they can never be forgiven. Seeing as how N was so lonely pretty much his entire life, I can see him having empathy for things that aren't even alive. Poor guy. And teaching himself how to jump off of Reshiram just for the aura is so worth it. I feel like a lot of people would do that with their Pokemon, even if they're too afraid to admit it. It's just too cool to not learn how to do. It has no practical use, yeah, but it just looks cool. I like the idea of Drayton seeing one of the Eon twins when he was little. It's kind of like Ash seeing Ho-Oh or Go seeing Mew, but I guess it wasn't enough motivation though, because he just got kind of lazy after a while. Maybe he found out they got captured or something. Crispin would definitely watch that type of content, but that sounds horrifying. I love spicy food a lot, but having multiple super spicy things combined into one, that's too much for even me to handle. I feel like Lacey would have been taught to defend herself by her dad. He's a tough country cowboy. There's no way he didn't. Hopefully she never has to be put into a position where she has to fight though. Amaris doing long division for fun is the nerdiest thing I've ever heard. I love it. And Drayton typing immature things onto a calculator is is definitely something you would do. I feel like you would think it's funny every single time. I can see Carmine sticking up for Amaris. I wish they better explain how Carmine and Amaris became friends, because I feel like their personalities are very different. But maybe that's what makes it work. They balance each other out. And yeah, I can see Amaris not really caring about the bullies, but appreciating her help anyway. The idea of Larry rapping is so funny. I love it a lot. I now need Larry, Rhyme, Uzma, and Gyakumo to all have a rap battle. I feel like all you need to do to get Larry on board is tell him that he'd get a raise or something. L. Pikmin Master says, Penny decided one day to show Nimona and the others Dragon Ball, and that became the one thing aside from the player that glues the friend group together. Penny is an anime fan in canon, so that's a no-brainer. Nimona likes the fights, especially involving Goku. She's oblivious the entire time at how similar she is to Goku. Arvin gets interested in the lore and questions every time how these guys eat so much food. Kieran's fond of the enemies turned friends trope and is the only one who tears up at the scene where Gohan first transforms into Super Saiyan 2. Carmine just likes everyone hanging around together and doesn't pay much attention to the anime. Side note, I based this headcanon on a similar situation I personally faced, as between me, my brother, and 3 friends, one of which I barely knew beforehand, have different interests, but was glued together by initial D. One likes cars, one likes anime and competition in general, one likes both cars and anime, bro likes to hang around with people, and only started to like cars, and I like Eurobeat. I love this headcanon. I think this is like a canon event for all Dragon Ball fans or something, because I also have a very similar story to yours. It's pretty cool how it can bring people together though. And I like your perspective on what everyone would do. Nimona being oblivious to her similarities to Goku is funny. Arvin questioning the logistics is great too. But my favorite one is Kieran and the enemies turned ally trope. There's so much of that in Dragon Ball, and because of Kieran's whole character arc of being an antagonist, then later joining the player's friend group, I can just see why he'd be so fond of it. And yeah, I don't think Carmine would care too much about it, but she'd probably comment about them screaming a lot. Kids2 says, 2 headcanons about Crispin from the new Scarlet and Violet DLC. I just always imagined Crispin with a Chicago mobster-esque accent. This is because his dad had run away from the mob, and this is a reason for his straight-to-the-point attitude. And also, unrelated, has a weird obsession with TikTok Spice Kings. I would have never imagined Crispin to have a mobster accent. I always imagined him with like a very high-pitched nerdy voice, but hey, why not? I love your explanation for it though. His straight-to-the-point attitude would fit super well with that type of accent. And yes, Crispin would 100% be obsessed with TikTok Spice Kings, but would absolutely be devastated once he finds out that they're all fake. And that's all the headcanons we have for today. Please subscribe, like the video, comment, follow my socials. Thank you all so much. I'll catch you all later, everyone. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.